Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. One-of-a-kind opinions, big-name guests, the teams you care about every day. It's the Ron Johnson Show, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Ron Johnson Show. I'm your host, Ron Johnson. That's my producer, Sam Ekstrom. And on today's show, we're going to have Jon Krawczynski. You know, the same one. The one that's going to tell us everything we need to know about the Wolves, maybe a little bit of wild insight if he has any. And then, of course, we're going to have the Daily Three because why not? 3 questions, 3 minutes. But at the top of the show, what I want to talk about today is the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves became internet fame, I'd say, if you want to call it that, or internet famous, infamous. I'm not going to say laughing stocks. I think JJ Redick put it best. The city of Minneapolis itself has been through a lot. These players have been through a lot. What I did not realize, Karl-Anthony Towns, the anniversary of losing his mom, I think was either this week or the night of that game. Somebody tweeted that. I did not check to make sure that was correct. But even if it was in the vicinity of this game, that's a lot as well. And I don't think people understand that. I lost my father a couple years ago, and it never really goes away. You know, as June gets closer and July comes around, I just have those memories. You know, I have the memories of what happened that day, the day I found out that I lost my dad. And so it was tough for me. It's still tough. And so if Cat was battling that, I pray that mentally he's okay. I pray that he gets whatever support, which I'm guessing one of the main reasons, maybe his wife was on the court. She knew what he was going through. Men are often treated like commodities when it comes to sports and warriors, and they're not thought of as human beings that have other issues outside of the sport you're watching and you want to report on. So there's so much more to this. For Karl-Anthony Towns to go down the way he did and not be able to finish the game out because of fouls, I think that was a huge downer to start. I think a lot of people assumed the way the score was going with Karl-Anthony Towns out that they were just preparing to go play the Pelicans. I think that's what, or the Spurs, but we know it's the Pelicans now. So I think a lot of people had all of that in their mind on that bench. And so to overcome it the way they did, for D'Angelo Russell to get hot the way he did, for Pat Beverly to kind of, do the things he did, defensive plays, getting in guys' heads. Paul George went off, but Ann Edwards and D'Angelo Russell with 30 and 29, they were able to keep it together. And so people were saying they treated this like a Super Bowl win, or they treated this like they won the first game in an elimination game of the Final Four or something, or the Sweet 16. I watched the Final Four, and I watched the play-in games for that, the bubble games, or the first 4 in, if they want to call it, or the last 4 in. Those guys celebrate too when they make it to the tournament. When they beat, the 6 in this, or whatever, the 11th seed, they're fighting for the 11th seed. Those guys win. They're excited. They're excited to move on to the next. When guys make it to the Sweet 16, they're excited to make it to the next. And I think even myself, I sat up that night as well, and I was kind of laughing with everybody else. But then I had to think, like, why? Like, it's okay to celebrate the way they did. I think that when you think about everything these guys have been through, the heart, the sweat, the tears, the blood, it's a huge moment. When guys win playoff games in football to go to the next round, they run around and celebrate and run into the locker room and talk about what's up next. Maybe not Tom Brady, because when Tom Brady wins Super Bowls now after winning 7, it becomes second nature to him. Other guys that win Super Bowls, they're splashing champagne, everything. Tom Brady's packing up and getting ready to go drink some tequila, some avocado tequila.
Yes.
But when you really think about what we just witnessed a bunch of young guys excited about where they are. I mean, you go from 23 wins to 46. I haven't looked that up or gone into to the historical annals of sports history, but that's got to be one of the biggest one-year turnarounds for a team to double their win total and then make it to the playoffs. I mean, 23 wins, and then people were like, oh, I think they can get, 40 or, maybe they'll get 35. They got 46 wins, now 47, because they're not counting the play-in as playoffs. That's counting. They're counting. I don't know what they're counting it as. I don't know if they're going to count it as regular season. They're going to count it as an asterisk, but it's not playoffs. But they won 46 games, now 47 to become the 7th seed. That's a huge accomplishment. So I'm with them on the celebration. I see nothing wrong with it. Just don't get burned out. I like the fact that D'Angelo Russell said, we're not excited about this. We were supposed to be here. We're supposed to be in the playoffs. I think that's coming back down to earth. The question is posed, who's going to bring this team back down to earth? I think they did it themselves. Pat Beverly's still out there having fun. He's an old dog. When he's healthy, every team he's been on has made the playoffs. So he's just doing what Pat Beverly does, which is get on people's nerves. When you think of D'Angelo Russell, he's ready for the playoffs now. He knows, like, look, I can go. I know I can go. I've been a superstar. Now I have 2 other guys that if I know they're not going, they can trust me. And they also can say, hey, we don't have to force. Like, Cat didn't have to force threes. I think that was the issue. Cat was forcing a lot of those threes because he wants to be called the greatest shooter, big man ever in history. But in my opinion, I'm with it. I think they were fine. Sam, what are your thoughts?
I mean, isn't the celebration ultimately a salute to the fans that were there? Because they're not celebrating like that in LA. They're not jumping on the Clippers scorers table. They're probably not, hugging A-Rod at center court in the Clippers arena. That was a salute to the fans that showed up all year. They bought into this team as the year went along, and they absolutely emptied the clip on Tuesday night. They were raucous. They gave that team energy, and they were feeding into that celebration. And Pat Beverly's jumping on the scorers table. That's a direct salute to Kevin Garnett 18 years earlier. He's not doing that on the road. He's doing that because he's in front of the fans that adored him and adored this team. And those fans have been through turmoil for 2 decades. They've had one playoff team in 18 years, and it wasn't even that good. It was an 8 seed, and it had Jimmy Butler, who ended up sort of betraying the team. So they really haven't had a team to grasp onto like this in almost 2 decades. So your celebration is sort of feeding off of what the fans gave you, and they gave you a lot. If no one showed up to that game, if they were sitting on their hands, there would not have been as much cause to celebrate. So that, I think, there was an equal reaction to what the fans gave them in that game. I would have been worried if that celebration took place on Friday. Like, if they had lost and had to play Friday, then celebrate like that, then travel to Phoenix, and then play 2 days later, that would have been hard, I think, emotionally to come back from. But they've got 5 days. From Tuesday to Saturday, they get ready for Memphis. I don't think that if they take a day to celebrate and then refocus for 4 days and then play the Grizzlies, I mean, any team, young or old, should be okay with that kind of turnaround.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the key is they're a young team, but the good thing is they're playing another young team. When you look at the inexperience of the Grizzlies, you look at Ja Morant not playing the entire season due to injury. Or soreness, whatever you want to call it, but injury.
The second half of the year. I think he played early on, I think.
Yeah, he did. He played 57 games.
Yeah.
But when you look at Ja Morant being out and the team doing well with him out, chemistry is huge, especially in the playoffs, and your mind can get thrown off. Like, if you mentally are not where you think you should be, that's the good thing about the Timberwolves. They had to come back twice in this game, and so they know they can do it with or without Cat, with Cat, hopefully. But we're going to get more of that information when we come back on the Ron Johnson Show as Jon Krawczynski joins. And now joining me on the Ron Johnson Show, as promised, Jon Krawczynski. You know him. We all know him. He covers the Vikings when he gets a chance, but mainly Timberwolves and Wild. Jon, thanks for joining the Ron Johnson Show. And I'm going to jump right into this, Jon. Like, let's start off here first with Gluegate. What in the world was that lady thinking?
Yeah, Ron, it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life, man. I mean, we're in the middle of this super intense game. It's kind of like chaotic at the time because there's all these emotions involved, and the Clippers and the Wolves are going at it. And it's late in the second quarter. And all of a sudden, and it happened kind of right in front of where we sit in the media area. And they're shooting free throws on the other end of the court. And I see this woman kind of like walk out just barely onto the court and sort of like kneel down. And no one really knew what was going on at the time. I thought, Ron, that somehow, some way she had like fallen and hurt herself because she was really kind of crumpled up in this weird position. and you could see like everyone's looking around like, what is happening? And the security come onto the court. A couple of players go to check on her. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes kind of clear that she's glued her hand to the court as some sort of a protest about the treatment of animals on a Glenn Taylor farm in Iowa or something like this. And it was just so weird. And she clearly thought she was going to be there for a long time. And they just grabbed her, pulled her hand off the court, and escorted her out of there. But no one really kind of knew for about a good 5 or 10 minutes. And like, then you're starting to put things together. You read what her shirt says and all this. And, but yeah, it really like, it changed the whole atmosphere in the building for a good 5 or 6 minutes there. And I honestly think that helped the Wolves. It just gave them a chance to catch their breath and calm down. And they got back into the game. So she wanted to mess things up for Glenn Taylor. She ended up helping him for a while.
Thank you. I said that like the minute she did it after they start coming back, I tweeted that. I'm like, this lady might have just helped them come back in the second, because I've looked at this series now 6 games, but 5 games prior, the 5 games prior to this playing game, they had every team that was up in the first half won the game, except for the one time where the Clippers found a way to come back from a 10-point deficit and win. So the Clippers had the edge 2-3. And I said, whoever wins the first half is going to win this game. So when I turned on the game, I was nervous because when I turned it on, they were down. So as soon as I got home, turned it on as quick as I could, they were down. And so I was nervous because I'm like, they're down. And if they lose in the first half, it's only happened one time out of the 5 that they've been able, the opposing team has been able to come back. So yeah, I think she completely helped out. I think I don't think she thought it through. Like she should have put glue in her hand first and let it kind of dry like Gorilla Glue and then go to the court for the last minute stick, because she wasn't serious. I felt like it was a tantrum of a kid that throws a tantrum but really doesn't want to do anything bad. Like kids know, like if a kid really wanted to do something bad, they could break a window, they could throw glasses. They know what to do with a tantrum. Like they know to cry just long enough or to stump just long enough before they really do something that they can't come back from. And I feel like that's like, because in the end, honestly, like if they had let her glue herself to the floor, like what she would have had to do to get unglued, whether it's rip skin off, like she wasn't really, she used Elmer's probably washable school glue. I just think it was all just for show. She wasn't really a diehard. She wasn't gonna, chain herself to the rim and swallow the key. That's we really are all about this life. Like if you chain yourself to the back to the the stanchion and swallow the key to the point where they have to go call somebody to get the jaws of life in, and all of a sudden the Minneapolis Fire Department has to show up to cut her out. Like then I'm like, okay, this lady's about this life. The Elmer's glue, I just think she was trying to help Pat Bev out. She's a Pat Bev fan. You even saw him have a conversation with her. Like, I told you, it worked. It worked. Thanks. Like you gave us an extra time out. So honestly, I'm looking forward to teams across the country or fans when their team is down now and refs aren't giving them calls to realize like, I got to do something. Like I got to run on the court butt naked. I gotta do something. But let's go a step further. Lavelle E. Neal, he tweeted that the Timberwolves are jokes. Basically, he was in agreement with Shaq and Barkley's and their laughs and Kenny Smith about the Timberwolves celebration. After you think about the fact that this was potentially Karl-Anthony Towns' anniversary of losing his mom, you look at the way he fouled out, you look at the game he played, you look at the way Pat Beverly, D'Angelo Russell, and Edwards had to step up. And they went from 23 wins to 46 wins. They doubled their win total to make it to the playoffs. Are you for the celebration? Or are you against it as well? Where do you fall?
I'm for the celebration, Ron. And just to be clear, I cover the Wolves. And so some people say, oh, you're defending them. Like I've typically been for celebrations all of the time in sports. Sports are supposed to be fun. You're supposed to enjoy it. And here was my thing on it. And Lavelle's a great friend of mine. And, and so we're tight and stuff, but he seemed to be, I thought the TNT guys in general were kind of just poking fun and it was a little playful. I thought Lavelle was a little more like really looking down his nose at it and a little curmudgeonly about it. And for me, here's my whole issue with it, Ron. Like a lot of times what you hear, especially from older people watching the NBA, is the kids these days don't care about the game. None of this matters to them. Like back in the day, Bird and Magic, like they hated each other. Mikhail is clotheslining Kurt Rambis, and like they really got after it. And this was important. Now they don't care about it. Well, now here in this case, like they cared about this. Like it was clearly meant something to them. And yeah, it wasn't the championship, but for an organization that has only been in the playoffs one time in the last 18 years before this, like this was a big moment for them. Couple it with they were down 10 points in the fourth quarter without their best player who had fouled out, and they stormed back to win the game. I mean, what do you expect them to do? Do you expect them to just shake hands and walk off the court? I mean, it was an insane environment. The whole place was absolutely rocking. And I think they got swept up in that as much as the fans got swept up in the game action itself. So I was all for it. I thought it really just showed the passion of these guys and how much they really cared about winning that game, getting a matchup with Memphis that they like a lot more than Phoenix, and not having to go into a situation where you're playing on Friday night literally for your life. It's in or out. Like this was the game that clearly the Wolves threw everything they had at it to try and win it, and then they won it in dramatic fashion. And so if you want to celebrate, if you want to have a good time, I say go for it, man. You earned it.
Yeah, and so when you think about Pat Beverly, even like my favorite quote of his, he was getting interviewed on TV, national show, and they said, "At what point did you realize you were going to jump on the scores table? 5 minutes left in the game, 1 minute left in the game, 10 seconds left." He said the night before, and to me, that was the best thing ever. And he had a serious face because we know how he loves to, like, even if he's joking, he's going to give you, he's going to give you the Pat Bev treatment. And the guys on the panel are laughing at it and blah blah. Dude was kind of low-key serious. Like, he really probably thought, like, you know what? Like, I'm playing my old team. I've done that. When we play the Badgers and I know there's a chance we're going to win the Axe, or we're playing, the Hawkeyes and there's a chance we're going to win the Pig, I'm honestly kind of thinking about it in the hotel the night before. Like, if it's a close game and I catch a touchdown, am I going to run over and grab the Pig? I know one time I scored and I asked for a cheerleader's number. Like, I've been trying to find the clip. I found kind of a grainy clip. I think Justin Guard found one and tweeted it out, but I've been trying to find a better. Yeah, like I just, in my mind, I didn't, and that was not a premeditated ask for your number. It was kind of a joke. But then it's funny, people have showed me the clip now because the cheerleader kind of jumps up and down as if, I don't know if she was excited or she was like, "What? I can't believe he just did that." But, for Pat Bev to do what he did, one, I think it shows an older guy enjoying it, making it okay for the younger guys to realize it's okay to celebrate because they're watching the veterans. Like, if he had just kind of chilled and walked, because I looked at Anthony Edwards, and if you watch it back, Anthony Edwards looks over at Pat Bev first before he jumps on the table. Like, I don't think he would have done that. I think he was following suit. That's why when I watched it, like, look at Anthony Edwards. He looks over at him and says, "Oh, this dude's on the table. I'm getting on the table." And then he takes his, shows his abs off and whatever. Like, I don't think Anthony Edwards knew that was coming. That was pure, I'm following Big Brother. I'm going to do what my big bro is doing. And I think the organic nature of that, of Pat Bev to be the leader in the celebration and D'Angelo Russell to then, go over and do the same. Whereas Cat was more melancholy because we don't know what he was going through mentally, but also he's like, man, like I don't know if I deserve to celebrate, because we know how great players feel when they don't do well in moments. Like, I think he feels like he let his team down, and I hope that lights a fire. But in my opinion, the 6th seed was not the place you wanted to be. The 7th, even though it is a play-in spot, the 7th is where you want to be with the Grizzlies. Last one, what do you think of this Grizzlies team, and do you think the Timberwolves can get it done in 6?
Well, so number one, I love the Grizzlies team. I love their swagger. I love their confidence. They play together incredibly well, and I honestly think this is a Spider-Man meme game. Like, these are two young teams that play with a lot of swag, that love to talk trash, that really believe in themselves, and are kind of going in trying to make names for themselves again. And so I think it's going to be an unbelievable series. The way that they match up with each other is great. And yeah, I think that, the Wolves for sure wanted the Grizzlies, not the Suns, in this, because they believe that they have a chance. The way that the series went this year, it was 2-2. There was two really tight games. They won one game by 43 points. I think karl-Anthony Towns always plays better against the Grizzlies, against Steven Adams, against Jaren Jackson Jr. So I do not anticipate that he will have the kind of game that he did against the Clippers. I think he's going to play really well. And yes, I do believe that the Timberwolves can win this series. This is a game. This is a one that they are going to go into, and it's not like facing a team like Phoenix, who was in the finals last year, who has Chris Paul, Devin Booker, guys who have been through the wars, Jay Crowder. The Grizzlies, for the most part, are very new to this, just like the Wolves are. And so there's not a real advantage for the Grizzlies in terms of playoff experience, in terms of like knowing what that stage feels like. I mean, they were there last year for a minute, but they were bounced quickly. And so that's going to be a good thing for the Wolves. I also just think that the way that the Grizzlies play offensively plays a little bit more into the Wolves' hands from a defensive standpoint. And so, yeah, I think that this is a series that can go 6 or 7 games, that the Wolves absolutely are going to go in expecting that they can win. And I think that there's a really good chance that they will win it.
Well, there you heard it from Jon Krawczynski himself. The Timberwolves, the line right now is plus 250. I'd say put your money on the Wolves if I'm a betting man on betonline.com. Feel free to do it. And now it's the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes. Take it away, Sam.
You got it, Ron. This was kind of a big story yesterday. The Minnesota Twins yesterday afternoon, on a very cold Wednesday afternoon in front of a very small crowd, almost got no hit. Not only was it almost a no-hitter, it was almost a perfect game. Clayton Kershaw, the former Cy Young winner for the Dodgers, 7 perfect innings, 13 strikeouts, only 80 pitches. He was in great shape. Perfect pitch count management. One of the best chances I would have ever seen for a pitcher to throw a perfect game, and they pulled him. They pulled him because he was injured last year. It was his first start of the year on a pitch count of sorts. Is pitch count management, Ron, out of control if teams are pulling pitchers when a perfect game is on the line?
No. There's the thing about sports, man. It's especially early in baseball. We're talking baseball. This is early. We got over 150 games. I think pitchers are going to pitch. A guy like Kershaw is going to, they're going to try to get everything they can out of him. So you're looking at a 20, win possible type of pitcher. I mean, they're trying to get him to get the most out of him. You got a Dodgers team that have recently won a championship, so they know what it feels like and what it takes to win. In their mind, and Kershaw, of course, in the interview, he says all the right things, team first, blah, blah, blah. The thought behind it is, like you said, he has been injured. You don't want to go through that again. When you think about the perfect game, yes, okay, that's something that will live in history. But let's be honest. If you think about the 24 times it has happened, you're not really going to go back and remember all 24 times. You're not going to remember the pitchers that did it. You're not going to remember, especially if they did it against the Twins on a 7-0 blowout, probably even more, who knows? I mean, who knows where it would have went, but on a 7-0 win, I don't think that's something that, when I'm 60, I'm going to look back like, man, remember that time, Kershaw threw a no-hitter against the Twins? No, because it didn't matter. Now, if it's in the playoffs or it's later in the season and they're doing it to clinch, this is game, 140. I get it. But this early in the season, you don't want to do that and possibly hurt him this early and then ruin your chances for a chance to win the World Series. Like, everybody thinks they're contenders in baseball because everybody is. It's all about who gets the bats hot first. and who can sustain it. Who, kind of has the chemistry early to make some of these double plays, and, some of, the catcher shortstop relationship, the outfielders, talking infielder versus outfielder, pitcher catcher, all these relationships, who's watching the most film or pays attention to who's at bat, all the little things that are going to matter. That's what baseball is about. And then when you think about the fact that baseball, it sometimes can become one of those, unwritten rule games, where it gets boring and it gets this, like, you want the superstars to go down the stretch so people are still watching. The minute superstars start going down and these games don't have anything in it, it's about the pitcher. Like, whoever has the best pitcher down the stretch is going to be the better team and have the best chance to win, a World Series. And I think that's what the Dodgers are thinking this early on. Again, why risk it for a small piece of history that a lot of people really won't remember, besides like true baseball historians who will talk about it? He'll get his 15 minutes of fame as far as just the news cycles talking about it over and over. He's going to get the fame now anyway. The fact that they pulled him is still sensational. I think even more fact, because we're going to keep talking. If he threw it, it'd be like, we threw a no-hitter. Let's talk about it. Let's be about it. Boom, done. No, he actually kept it going. So in my opinion, no, I think that was the right move.
Yeah, at least with Kershaw, he's got plenty of accolades and plenty of memories in his career where I think he's going to be okay. If this was some minor league call-up who was doing the one good thing that he might ever do in his career and had that taken away, that might be a little different. But I think Kershaw has bigger fish to fry, and he's won World Series. He's obviously he's got a lot of hardware back at home. So I think that he'll survive this. You mentioned it in the interview with John. The Grizzlies are minus 330 favorites to win the series over the Timberwolves. So for the novices, you got to front $330 to win 100. Timberwolves are plus 250. You pay 100 and you get 250. So they're almost 3-1 underdogs. Where would your money go, Ron Johnson?
Well, I'm going to put $1 down to win $25 on the Timberwolves. No, it's not the minimum. I think the minimum is $100. But when you think about some of the props in this, I know it's going to be out there, the Timberwolves win in 6, Timberwolves can win in 5, Grizzlies win in 4. I'm guessing those are the props that might be out there. I would kind of hit heavy on the Timberwolves win in 6, but I'm also going to go overall Timberwolves win plus 250. Give me my money. Like, if I put 100 down, give me my 250. And so when you think about that, when you think about what possibly can go wrong, well, I think we saw it. Cat not showing up. And we saw D'Angelo Russell and Ant Edwards can do it. The biggest difference is you look at Ja Morant. He's not the leading scorer as far as overall because he hasn't played. Desmond Bane at 18.5 or 18.2 points a game has been the guy when he's been out down the stretch. But Ja Morant overall, we know his 33 minutes leads the team and his 27.4 points leads the team. Well, the big thing about chemistry is a guy comes in, if he's the guy and he's forcing it, can the Grizzlies do enough if Ja's not on? And I think that's the question mark, is if Ja's not on, can they still get it going? When he's not in the lineup, I think Desmond Bane kind of comes in knowing that. Steven Adams, they come in knowing that. But when he's out there, it's going to force the issue a little bit. But like you said, Ja Morant is a dunker. He's a slasher. He's powerful, explosive, one of the most explosive players in the NBA. You got Ant Edwards on the other side, the same. So it's going to be a battle of the explosive guards. It's going to be a battle of who can hit the most open shots, because I think when you look at Karl-Anthony Towns, the way he got double teamed, you look at Ant Edwards, when he drives now, I know teams are saying we got to close out faster. We can't hesitate and go to the wrong guy. We can't over-rotate. I think that's what happened on that down the lane dunk. They over-rotated, and Edwards caught it right away and realized, like, hey, there's nobody rotating to me, and he went. That's going to be the thing about the Grizzlies. And I honestly think on a 7th seed, coming off of the way they did, if they had not celebrated, I would say there's no pressure. But the fact that they celebrated the way they did, unfortunately, in sports, now there's added eyes and pressure, because if they lose, people are going to go back to the celebration and back to, the joke about, man, they overdid it. They should have been prepared mentally. They weren't. They're still worried about the Clippers, and they're still drinking champagne. They added a little pressure, but again, it's always going to be on the higher seed. I think The Grizzlies have more pressure because people don't believe they truly are a 2 seed. The NBA changes so fast, and I think we're seeing that. There's no more LeBron at the top right now. There's a change of guard, and we're seeing it. Ja Morant is one of the superstars now, along with Giannis. You got Devin Booker, and so that's and then Steph Curry, of course. And so we're seeing what the future of the NBA. And now Ant Edwards gets a chance to get on the stage, and he said when the big lights are there, he's going to put on a show. So now it's his time, but I'm putting my money on the Timberwolves. What about you?
Yeah, there's no way I'm laying minus 330 on a team as inexperienced as Memphis, especially with Ja coming off the injury. I absolutely would lay money on the Wolves. My worry is offensive glass. Memphis cleans up offensive rebounding, #1 in the league. And I worry about the Wolves at the rim. I mean, they really struggled against the Clippers when they were met at the rim. And the Grizzlies are #1 in blocks in the NBA. They're going to have a rim presence. They're big. They're physical. The Wolves are going to have to match their physicality for sure. Next topic. Justin Jefferson said on Tuesday that Kevin O'Connell is already showing him ways that he can get him open, like Cooper Kupp in LA. So, Ron, can Justin Jefferson put up the Cooper Kupp type numbers next year with the Vikings?
Yes. This is the thing about a coach when it's his offense. He is going to make sure the quarterback knows everything he needs to do within his offense. You saw Jared Goff do it and get them to the big game with Jared Goff. And Jared Goff is good, but we saw in Detroit with a anemic offense, Jared Goff cannot just put up big numbers without a guy helping him out, which was the Rams and Sean McVay and his offense and his mindset. Kevin O'Connell watched the way Sean McVay got this done. Kevin O'Connell watched the way Sean McVay operated. He's going to do the same thing with Kirk Cousins. He's going to be in Kirk Cousins' ear. He's going to have lunch with Kirk, dinner with Kirk, breakfast with Kirk, snacks. Like they might spend the night, late night in the hotel room. One of those, it might be a report from somebody. Oh, there was a report Kevin O'Connell was coming out of Kirk Cousins' room at 1 a.m. Like Kevin O'Connell is going to do everything he needs to do to make sure Kirk Cousins feels loved, feels appreciated, feels taken care of. I look at the commercial with Matt Stafford, and he's talking about trading in his cell phone. And when he says it, it's a joke, but he's like, oh, so I can trade my phone in that I've had for 12 years, even though I loved it and it was great for me, but I can get a brand new phone and get more out of it. And the lady looks and he winks because he's talking about himself with the Lions and then going to the Rams. He loved the Lions, did everything he could do with the Lions. But then when he went to the Rams, it's like a new phone. It's the iPhone 15, and he's now with the Rams and he sees like all these new apps and all the new stuff he can do and FaceTime with double time and face chat and all this stuff. Like that's what Kevin O'Connell is going to do for Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. He's going to show him the way. He's going to make sure that the defense, he's going to help him figure out the defense. Sean McVay did a great job of helping Jared Goff because they did like a check with me. What happens is they come to the line of scrimmage with about 20 to 25 seconds to go. So it's a loose huddle. You don't have to you don't have to huddle for 15 seconds. You get to the line and then you check with the coach to make sure, hey, yep, this is we're in the right play. Or he'll say whatever, wristband or whatever, and then that because the mic hasn't been cut off, as long as you're not at the line of scrimmage, it's kind of a loose huddle at the line, but you're not there yet. Then he can kind of mess with it and say, okay, check your band, is this, or hey, here's the signal called change. And with that kind of stuff, like you said, he wants Kirk Cousins to have autonomy of this offense. He wants Kirk Cousins to understand this offense. And what that means is if you pick wrong, Justin Jefferson is going to kill you. And then you still have Odell Beckham, you still have Van Jefferson, you still have Robert Woods. And so you think about, Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne, like they're going to get theirs. Irv Smith as the tight end, I think he's a lot more explosive and faster than Tyler Higbee. He's not bigger, but he's a lot more explosive. He can be used as a fourth receiver, third receiver in his offense, and a guy that can really stretch the field from a tight end perspective. But there's so much that this offense can do that Kevin O'Connell is going to do for Justin Jefferson, and that's why he's excited about it, and I totally agree. It's going to happen.
Yeah, you know what the difference was last year between Jefferson stats and Kupp stats? It seems like a lot. It's, 30-plus receptions, 300-plus yards. If you break that down over 17 games, it's like 2 catches and 20 yards per game. You don't think that they can find him an extra 2 catches and 20 yards if they just don't run the ball on 2nd and 12 a million times and throw those to Jefferson instead, I think that's actually pretty realistic when you break it down like that.
No doubt.
Running out of time, real quick reaction to our bonus question. Derek Carr signed an extension worth 3 years, $121 million. Is Carr worth that contract in your mind?
Yes, he got him to the playoffs. He has Devontae Adams now, so I think he's going to be even better. But you look at the contract-wise, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Derek Carr, then Matt Stafford, Dak Prescott, and then Kirk Cousins. So Kirk Cousins, $35 million a year is getting pushed down further and further. He's now tied with Russell Wilson at 35. Jared Goff got 33. So if you don't think Kirk Cousins is better than Jared Goff, you're an idiot. And then if you think about where Derek Carr is at $40 million a year, I think that's kind of the right number. I mean, you look at everybody else around him. Tom Brady's all the way down. We know it's 1 year and he's 50 years old, but it's $25 million guaranteed. Now, the guarantee is where it changes. Deshaun Watson, all of it, 230. Aaron Rodgers, 101. Josh Allen, 100. Dak, 95. Matt Ryan, 94. Kirk Cousins, way at the bottom, $35 million guaranteed. That's it right now. Then you look at Tom Brady. He's not even on this list. Tom Brady was like way down another 20 people from Kirk Cousins. So Derek Carr in this, same thing. Derek Carr doesn't have as much guarantee as these guys. And I think that's what's going to change. When you look at Derek Carr's guarantee right now, fully guaranteed, is only $24 million. So I think he's worth it. Like, now there might be some new language that comes out in this contract as it grows, because this is kind of the early reporting of it. And we know the language is not completely done. And we know all the bells and whistles aren't completely done. So maybe they'll add some guarantees in there. But at the moment, he's under $25 million guaranteed. So this is you got to earn this money. And I think his agent knows with Devontae Adams, he's going to earn it. So no, I don't think this is a bad number for him. I think he's right where he should be.
Yeah, I think Carr gets overlooked in that division with Russell and Mahomes and Herbert, but I think he's underrated. He's one of those guys that has some intangibles, throws a good deep ball, and I like having him at the end of a game with the game on the line. I think he's got that clutch gene.
Yeah, well, that'll do it for the Ron Johnson Show. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I'm your host, Ron Johnson. We had Jon Krawczynski on, of course. We talked about Gluegate. So make sure you download and subscribe on YouTube to the Locked On Sports Minnesota. Search the Ron Johnson Show, or you can also subscribe and listen to wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for joining and have a great day.